Hi folks, this is Isaac. This is episode 7. In this one we talk about Bruce's teacher Wang She Jin and his training with Wong, and some of the origins of some of the material from Energy Gates a little bit more. Also, we get into some of the tips on standing and how to build awareness while you're standing. Just a side note, I know everybody's stuck at home and this is kind of a bummer time. So, try to stay positive, wash your hands, stay healthy, take your vitamins, keep up your practice. We're going to be releasing these as on schedule as we can. We've got about 6 more recorded, so we should be good for the next few months. I hope you guys are enjoying it. If you are, let us know. I'm available for online lessons if anyone's interested. You can reach me through the website. Take care.
So, picking up where we left off on opening the energy gates of your body, we've been looking at the biography that Bruce Kumar Francis tells the story of his experiences in martial arts, and then we're also looking at some of the step-by-step procedure for doing the set. We left off here after spending time in Japan, he went on a trip to visit Taiwan. So there's a section called Taiwan, the astonishing Wang She Jin. So another experience pointed in the direction of China when Kumar visited Taiwan in 1968. There he met Wang She Jin, an internal martial arts master from the city of Tianjin. Wang was in his 70s and at 5'8", overweight and 250 plus pounds. Nevertheless, he proved to be physically quicker than the much younger Kumar, who he could knock or throw around the room at will. Which is pretty funny. There's a number of fight stories in here that are really cool, and tell his adventures meeting different martial artists in Taiwan. But I think, Master Wong ended up making a big impression on him. I think we heard before about Kenichi Sawai and the standing training and Taiki Ken they used to do in Japan. But here in Taiwan, he experiences another teacher that really influenced him.
Well, I think Wang She Jin was his, he always considered him his first internal martial arts teacher, or his main teacher. And I think that, while he learned stuff with other people like Cho, but he really didn't, grasp it or whatever until he was with Wong. I think that, Wong kind of took him under his wing a little bit too, I think.
So, continuing on with this profile of Master Wong. In their first conversation, Wong maintained that karate had inferior fighting technique and insists that actual prolonged karate practice would make your body old and damaged before its time. So he Master Wong insults him right from the start and tells him karate doesn't work.
Had a little bit of strong opinions on that.
Right. And I mean, you can, if you spend time in Chinese martial arts, you can feel the sense of rivalry or dislike between Chinese martial arts and Japanese martial arts in some places. It's not as big a deal as maybe it was 30, 50 years ago, but nowadays. But there's still a sense, both countries have pride in their martial arts, so, that's always going to be a thing, especially for these World War II guys like Master Wong.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting history there for sure. So, the next paragraph, Kumar recalls that he only ended up hurting his hands and feet on various parts of Wong's body, and he especially remembered Wong's disconcerting habit of ending up behind him several times during the fight, tapping him on the shoulder. So this older man's able to, easily outmaneuver him, even though he's a young karate champion at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those for, everyone that does internal martial arts. At some point, you meet that older person that looks completely benign and, clumsy or whatever, and then next thing you know, they're spanking you over the top of the head, and you're like, wait, what? So,
right. I mean, it just goes to show that sometimes people look odd, but they have good training.
Yeah, no, I mean, and truly cannot judge a book by its cover when it comes to internal martial arts.
Absolutely. Because we've encountered some oddball over the years who are, when you cross hands with them, you're surprised at how strong, how capable they can be, internally connected, even if they're not lined up exactly straight.
Yeah, I mean, I could name a whole bunch of people,
All right, so after the sparring match, Kumar began to practice at Wong's 5 a.m. class in Taichung Park. So it sounds like that's when he started getting into the training
that's early.
In Taiwan. And I believe, standing practice has got to be a part of what they were doing at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right, well, I think that, Marnix told us that every class started with, half an hour of standing with the arms up in the air, 6 postures, or
15 minutes each or something?
Or 5 minutes each, half hour total, and then you'd go into whatever it was. And that's how Bruce's classes were, in the early days. It was like, didn't matter what you were doing. Usually, maybe it was only a couple minutes, but you almost always just started with standing. I mean, and I think that's why we do it. It's just, it's kind of ingrained in it. It's something like it doesn't take long, but just doing it for a couple minutes kind of gets everything online, and you're like in your body a little bit more, and then you're ready to like do, whether it's sparring or doing forms or whatever, but you're just a little bit more engaged in your system. And I think that's what all these guys, they all talk about that, like that the thing you get from standing is that awareness of your body, and that is invaluable when it comes to...
And that awareness leads to a bit of a wholeness where you're able to move with more strength. I don't want to call it strength, but for instance, when you're doing standing for a while, when someone crashes into you, they bounce off you more than they used to.
Yeah,
there's a stability to it. You could call it strength or power, but it's more like unification seems to be the word that works best.
Yeah, and I think all of those, things describe essentially different aspects of the same thing. I mean, that's where you get a lot of this stuff. It's, it's hard to describe what internal things feel like. I mean, by their very nature, they're internal. They're not physical. So it's like, that's the Taoist thing of, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The piece, the way you describe dissolving to someone is never going to quite, even no matter how good you describe it, it's never going to quite be that thing. Just like, you can't describe to somebody what it feels like to get punched in the face, It's like, you can say, well, go, smack yourself in the chin, but it's not going to be the same. It's not the same, and it's just that's the experiential part of all this stuff. I think that's really important.
So Wang She Jin's clearly a big influence on Kumar when he gets to Taiwan. And so we decided to take a look at Master Wang's book, Bagua Linked Palms, translated by Kent Howard. A really interesting book that translates one of Master Wang's old books. And there's only a little bit of standing advice in the book. Chapter 4, Bagua Zhang Post Standing Methods. Post standing is the most fundamental skill of martial arts practice. The more you stand, the more stable your foundation will be. Post standing is called primordial or universal standing. And then he goes on to list a number of stances.
Yeah, well, there you go. The more you stand, the better you'll get. That's pretty much...
Is the most fundamental skill of martial arts practice. So, like, wouldn't you think maybe punching a punching bag something like that would be the most fundamental skill?
I mean, well, that's Wang She Jin's whole deal. I mean, I think the idea that if you make yourself essentially impervious to other people's strikes, what does it matter how good they are? It's just like a 3-year-old hitting you in the leg. It's like it doesn't do much.
Right. And that standing, it's just interesting to me that such a quiet, calm activity that can enrich you and form a foundation for either martial arts or for qigong or for meditation. And yet here is someone reputed to be a pretty invulnerable fighter saying that this is fundamental as martial arts practice.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to argue with him. I took challenge matches and do his 80s.
Take his word for it. So it's called primordial or universal standing. I don't know the Chinese that they're translating that from, but...
Well, I think, Bruce, the universal post is often used as a term, so I think that's probably the same, or similar.
And does that speak to that sense of feeling unified we've been talking about, or is it something more cosmic than that?
Well, I mean, I think the whole idea of a post, right? What does a post do? It's a thing that connects a top and a bottom, so it's one piece. And I think, the idea that standing is essentially to make your body like one thing, like a big pole. So column is maybe a better word, that you're the conduit between gravity and the ground, that the forces coming through you are not impeded by your own structure.
Your own tension isn't blocking the...
Yeah, your own tension or anything. Because could be, if your knee alignment is out, right, that's going to limit your structure, So I think ultimately all these things are alluding to the fact that without structure, martial arts aren't going to be very effective.
That makes sense. And
neither is anything else you do. I mean, you forget martial arts. Talk about, woodworking or gardening or, anything where you have to use your body. It's going to work better if your knee doesn't, break every time you put weight on it.
Right. And Kent makes a note here that post-standing does not, however, appear to be a universal practice in other Baguazhang styles. Wang She Jin had his students stand in the postures at the beginning of every practice session, regardless of what he was teaching.
Yeah, well, I think that goes to that it isn't a big part of Bagua, and that what he was really doing was making everybody do a little bit of Qigong standing or Xingyi standing before they did Bagua. And Bruce did the same thing. I mean,
right. I mean, that's a connection there in the teaching style.
Yeah, absolutely, I would say Bruce's teaching style mimics, Wang She Jin and Hung Yishang more than Liu or, that sort of more private type of teaching. He's very much, when he would teach stuff, you could almost feel him channeling their, repeating the things that they said to him when he was learning it and taking on their kind of cadence when he would talk. When he would do the ER Sansa stuff, it was like it was exactly like the way they did it. So I think
gravelly.
Yeah,
Chinese.
You're just kind of channeling your teacher's essence. I think everybody
you can't help it.
No, I think it's an unconscious thing, on a lot of levels, but everybody does it. I mean, it's part of the transmission, I think.
Yeah, each generation takes on some of the characteristics of their own teachers. So. And that's why digging into this stuff from Taiki Ken and from Master Wang's Bagua class, it's interesting to see these threads that travel from, his early training through the way he taught and our training together,
It's all the little streams that sort of, fed into what later became the quote-unquote, the system,
Right. Right. And so that's, it's fun to dig into those a little bit. So,
for sure.
Anyways, so just to finish up his chapter here about Taiwan and the astonishing Wang She Jin, he started the 5 a.m. class. He got beat up by an old man, then he got beat up by an old lady.
Classic.
And now he was starting to question his training up till that point. But
I think if you think of yourself as a proficient fighter, and then you get beat up by a 60-year-old woman, that's not now.
She
could be,
badass.
Yeah, she's, so yeah, I think that's a...
So he tells a story of talking to some of the older students there and trying to figure out what drew them to the practice. And he was saying, he talked to an old man who had a spine problem, and when he practiced, after a couple years, he felt so much better. He quit practicing. Then the old man's symptoms recurred after a few months. And so that's one of the lessons he passes on is the idea of using, Qigong and martial arts to rehabilitate yourself, to straighten your body, to strengthen your body, and that it's not a one-time fix.
Well, I think that was with all his teachers, a main theme, if you will, is that the healing aspects of doing internal martial arts, yes, it's a martial art and it's about learning how to fight, but it's also the process of doing that should be making your body stronger and healthier, not weaker and sicker, and
with injuries.
Yeah, and so, I think they did it in different ways. I mean, I think Wang She Jin was more on the Qigong meditation side. Hung Yishang was more on the, Tui Na and physical movements rehabilitation, but they all had a way of using internal martial arts, as a medical practice, and I think Bruce definitely carried that over into the energy gates, system.
So just to finish the biographical experience here, it sounds like Kumar went back to Tokyo up until 1971. He pursued his study of the internal arts with the Xingyi master Kenichi Suwai and with various students of Wang She Jin they had in Japan.
Right, we mentioned last time.
So he's speaking of Cho Sensei, his other teacher there. And he talks about getting into body work and doing massage. Then he went on a trip to Okinawa, and it ends with, he came to the realization that caused him to give up study of the purely external hard styles for good. From this point on, he focused all his efforts solely on the internal martial arts and Qigong.
He talked a lot about how giving up external martial arts was sort of a big thing, because you had to make the choice of, am I going to train things to keep my physical body strong, or am I going to give up on that sense of strength and pursue this more, more amorphous kind of power that, Wang She Jin and this old lady that just beat my ass have, and I think it must have been hard, coming from a lifetime of external martial arts where everything is about faster, stronger, harder, to, something where it's much more about sensitivity and softness. I mean, my first class, when he asked, what would you rather have, a hard body or a soft body, I blurted out hard, thinking like,
right,
and everyone's like, who's this doofus, So, I think it's a paradigm shift, especially when you're young, even if you don't come from that kind of world, but, especially coming from that, it's got to be a total mindfuck.
So continuing where we left off with the standing postures training, here in Lesson 2, we've been looking at the helpful hints for awakening your qi. The next one is let your nerves come alive. So this one's a pretty big one, because that's that sense of not just sort of passively occupying your body, but if you can help your nerves come alive, you're able to feel more, sense more, and enjoy your body more, even like be more present within it if the nerves are more alive.
Well, and I think, nerves are the precursor to feeling things like qi, that a lot of what in the initial practice is just wake up your nerves so that, in a sense, they can have a better, you have better sense of what you're feeling, right? I mean, your nerves are the antenna for everything else that you're feeling. So, he would often talk about the blood, the breath, and the nerves, right?
Right.
That those were sort of the three access points to, quote unquote, qi, which I really think is just a code name for a sense of feeling everything at once, or as much of it as you can at once. So the sense of unification that frequently gets talked about leads you to feeling this wholeness that is, part of, this inherent thing that all human beings have, but nobody can really put their finger on what it is.
And so you use a process like scanning your energy body to let the nerves come alive, and thereby sort of experience this heart, this inbuilt sense of unity that's in there.
Yeah, I think the nerves are just, they're the physical thing that allows you to feel, right? I mean, they're an actual, part of your body that if you improve their function, you feel, more, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say feel better, but sometimes you actually feel worse because you're just feeling more of what's there, and if it's not what it's not great, then.
He says that we have a wide range of ability to sense nerve awareness, and it can grow a lot, and don't be frustrated if you can't feel much at first. In time, you will be able to feel. And that's a good instruction, because
you
never know if you're fooling yourself, because you're like, hey, wait, am I really feeling, or am I just picturing that feeling?
Well, and that's where I think nerves are, even that one, what does a nerve feel like? I mean, people have different experiences of it, but usually as things begin to wake up, you get sensations like tingling or heat or, buzzing, and those are the senses of your nerves waking up. And then as that kind of hits a plateau of being a bit calmer, you start to notice things, sort of underneath that. But they create this interference at first, and then later they're the, tool with which you feel more. So it's
maybe that's some of the pain that Kenichi Sakai said. You feel the pain when you're standing. That's that feeling of nerves.
Right. Any sensation, but clearly pain is going to be the predominant one in the beginning, because the minute most people stop and go inside, what's the first thing you start feeling? Where your shoulders hurt, your knees hurt, your back, or you feel the imbalances in your body. And so I think what he's saying in a sense is, don't fight that sense of feeling all these different things. Just allow yourself to feel all this different stuff and not have any, predetermined notions of what you're supposed to do with it. Just allow it to be there and, let it wake up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, it was a long time ago. You probably had a more recent experience of what it was like to, as a beginner to learn standing. But I think everybody goes through it, in their own way. So,
absolutely, no, I couldn't agree more. And I'd like, letting your nerves come alive is just one of the key things to keep in mind while you train. It's going to something to keep a lookout for, and you'll experience it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not necessarily a low bar, but it's an easy bar to maintain. So rather than trying to feel some super subtle amorphous thing, it's like, well, pick something you can actually, identify.
Right, clap your hands together. There's your nerves. Your nerves aren't something far away that's hard to feel. And so this type of standing is going to help other nerves wake up that are kind of dormant and numb and kind of asleep. And so the next one, there's the nerves is the physical body, but the next one is keep the mind stable. So that's the mind training of this practice.
Right,
energy body scanning is not essentially a physical or an intellectual exercise. It is an exercise in specifying, refining, and increasing the life force energies in the body.
I mean, that's what they would refer to as the E, right? The mind, the intent, right? How strong is your intent? Because if your mind is wavering and drifting and wandering to shopping lists and things like that, it's hard to do this kind of practice. And so a big part of what you're developing in the beginning is just, the strength of mind to just hold your attention on doing this practice and not drift off and, start thinking about other things or analyzing what you're doing too much or, whatever it is, whatever you're projecting.
Right, so the very act of paying attention develops your ability to pay attention. It's like you're lifting these weights that are making you stronger by doing it.
Yeah.
And he says in that paragraph, gradually this practice increases your attention span, concentration, and sensitivity to subtle energies.
Yeah, well, I think, again, this is that thing that Kenichi Sawai said about things maturing over time, that it's just a patience, just if you keep at it and keep plugging away at it, eventually these things will appear. And, the I don't know if it's a bummer part of it, but, that there's no way to tell if it's going to happen quickly, if it's going to happen slowly. So you just have to be patient and, not worry about it. And it'll come when it comes,
I agree. I think that there's, one of the experiences you have standing is that your mind wanders and then you come back to it. And then your mind wanders and then you come back to it and you feel so many different feelings, so many different thoughts, things just come and go. I think maybe that's the cloudiness he was speaking of, where just stuff is drifting through your mind. It's stuff you've thought of before again and again, and over time I felt like as my skill in standing grew, those thoughts came and went, but they distracted me less, and I was able to be a little more present, a little more stable, and a little more appreciative. Rather than just chasing the thoughts, I'm able to soak in some of the environment we're standing in, especially on Tank Hill when we could see a beautiful sunset or clouds changing. Instead of chasing my thoughts, I was able to break free from that and actually just be here now and enjoy being alive a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think that's the part of it, where it's essentially about waking your body up so that it becomes more alive. And so you have moments where just stopping and acknowledging that your body feels a little bit more alive in the moment is nice. But there's also the piece about the minute that you stop and acknowledge it in the moment, you're not doing the practice anymore. So it's this, what Bruce would always say is it's nice to have those moments, but don't make those moments the whole, don't make them important. Don't give them any, don't think you're special because you have a moment of clarity where you feel like things are, it's just all of these things that you're feeling and that you're experiencing, the essential piece is just to allow them to move through you, right? So, and again, this is the especially if you don't know what it is part, because all of that stuff, whether it's your thoughts about how great you are at it or how much you suck at it or what you're going to do next, those are all layers of this stuff that's going on as you dissolve. And so on one level, you're like trying to feel all this stuff and it's a million things at once. On another layer, it's just letting your mind kind of settle into, let's just see what all this stuff is about, and not worry that all these things are disconnected or that don't feel right, and to just kind of let it all gel into one thing. So it stops being, the million little things of the monkey mind, and it just becomes all these crazy ass things that are happening are my mind, right? Because everything that you're experiencing in your body, you're experiencing it through your mind. And so just that one piece about going, okay, I'm going to just relax into the fact that, I am all of these things and it's okay to feel all this stuff. But, and then when you go into it, you're not going to freak out that things aren't, any particular way.
It's almost like you stop judging what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the blank slate analogy, right? That if you just go into it with sort of a, nothing is good or bad. It's just,
it is what it
different,
is.
Yeah. And things are different. I mean, it's just, accept them for what they are and move on.
So looking at the next part of the tips here, the need for rapid perfection slows progress. Only the rarest of human beings can do these exercises correctly in the beginning. And, I can speak to that because, I came into it and I've had some training when I first did it, but I feel like you were talking about the layers of the onion, At first, I felt like within a few weeks I could do it all, but at the same time I was just beginning, and then after a few more weeks, I felt like I was doing it all wrong. So I've had to sort of remake it. And each time I've maybe discovered a place where I was overstretching and injuring myself, or maybe there was a point where I was tilting that I didn't realize. I've had to remake the practice again and again, and it's never going to be perfect.
I think that it's the onion layers again, right? The first layer of the onion is learn the physical movements, right? The second layer of the onion is feel your body while you do the physical movements. And, at each layer, you sort of discover a different quality of, tension or whatever it is in your body. And so, things that, feel good on one level might later on, you might notice that, I'm actually, that feels good, quote unquote, because I'm holding a whole bunch of tension somewhere in my body. And, when I let go of that tension, I lose the sense of it feeling good, and it just feels like part of the rest of the movement, right? And so things lose their judgment quality of good or bad, and they're just, they're just there.
So the very last one of the suggestions here under helpful hints. Beware of false feelings of strength. To most people, a sense of strength is a very positive and useful thing, something to be valued. However, a feeling of strength is sometimes found where energy has built up due to blockages which prevent the normal, healthy, steady flow of energy from circulating in a relaxed, powerful fashion.
Yeah, I think that's especially it seems like more for men because strength is such a big thing, but physical power and stuff. That it's hard to let go of that feeling of strength, right? To trust that there's some other thing that you can use to be strong, to be powerful, right? This is the power of the yin, right? That when you let go of your feeling of strength, you actually become strong because you're not holding on to this false sense of stability.
So feeling of strength isn't necessarily strength.
No, I think it's the opposite of strength. I mean, this is especially, true of Tai Chi, where, in those moments where you feel like you're strong, what you really are is, unstable and about to fall over. In the moments when you're actually, stable, you don't feel much of anything. You just, you're just in the movement. And I think that's the same with standing, is that when it's going good, you don't feel much. You just kind of, your mind is just moving through your body and there's no restriction. when it's not going so well, you're feeling all of these things, and every little thing you feel seems like a big thing. You know, it's the princess and the pea kind of thing, where you feel this little thing in your shoulder, and you know your mind interprets it as this. You know, I'm probably dying of cancer, and you know, so that piece of just, you know, seeing things for what they are and not putting a lot of judgment on them is, I think, a real important part of how you approach standing, not necessarily what you do when you stand. All right, well, those are
good talking to you.
Good tips. That's episode 7.
Another one in the can.
All right. Hey folks, Isaac again. Just one last thing. I am not doing any in-person classes, but I'm working on doing some Zoom lessons for my weekly classes and possibly for the workshops. So if you're interested, drop me a line, let me know. All right, take care and like and subscribe. Cheers.